None like you. Into the darkness you shine.
All right, everybody. That is the intro of our chapter today. This is John chapter 2, where if you didn't catch on, this is the chapter where Jesus turns water into wine. So let's jump right into it. In John chapter 2, we begin with, on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. I love how that's included in the beginning of this chapter. Right in verse 1, the mother of Jesus was there. There's a reverence for Mary all over the Bible. Mary was there. Mary was there. The mother of Jesus, she's at this wedding. This is a really important wedding. So it says, now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. Why would Mary want to say this to Jesus? There's several reasons. Number one, Mary felt a certain sense of responsibility for the couple getting married. So that leads some people to believe that Mary was invited to the wedding and she brought her son with her. She brought Jesus, and Jesus was allowed to bring some friends. So that's kind of where Jesus fits in this story. He's a guest of a guest, and he's allowed to bring his buddies. And so the couple, who we never learn the names of, run out of wine, and that is a social no-no. It's embarrassing to have at a party to run out of wine for your guests. So Mary goes to Jesus, who is not really a main character at this wedding, and says, Jesus, they have no wine. And Jesus says to her, woman, and that's not disrespectful. We'll see that term again in John chapter 19, when Jesus is actually hanging on the cross, where he says to Mary, his mother, he says, woman, behold your son, and actually points to John, the beloved disciple. So the word woman is not degrading. He's not disrespecting his mother by calling her woman. So he says, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. This saying, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? That's actually not what it says in the original Greek. It says, woman, what to you and to me? It's a saying, it's slang that Jesus uses with his mother. What to you and to me? So I love that verse 4, John chapter 2, verse 4, because Jesus is using slang with his mother. This is a very earthy, down-to-earth, almost casual Jesus with his mom. And it's not casual to the point of disrespect. It's casual to the point of intimacy. He's very close to his mother, where he has even these private sayings with her. What to you and to me? My hour has not yet come. So we move on to this part of the verse. My hour has not yet come. Mary knew better to ask Jesus that they have no wine. And actually, I'm wrong. She's not actually asking them at all. She's asking Jesus at all. She's telling him, Jesus, this couple has no wine. She's not asking him anything. In a way, she's kind of telling him, Jesus, they don't have wine. Do something about it. Jesus says to her, my hour has not yet come. So between these two sayings, Mary and Jesus seem to have this intimate relationship as mother and son, where Mary knows about Jesus' powers, and is hinting at him to do something about it. And Jesus telling his mother that his hour hasn't come yet. What is his hour? It's to die on the cross. He tells her, my hour has not yet come yet. So Mary and Jesus, Mary seems to know about Jesus' mission in a way that's deeper than the other apostles, in a way that's deeper than anyone else until Jesus actually goes through it. So Jesus says, my hour has not yet come. In a way, he kind of protests to doing anything about this, about the fact that this couple has no wine. But does Mary even acknowledge that? She turns to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. Whatever he says to you, do it. In more commonly, that's translated to do whatever he tells you. And actually, I made a boo-boo. We are not in the NASB translation, are we? There we go. So then, after Mary says that, whatever he says to you, do it, or do whatever he tells you, this is actually the last thing Jesus' mother, Mary, ever says in the entire Bible. Do whatever he tells you. Whatever he says to you, do it. This is really important because Mary has one wish. All she desires is that you do whatever her son wants you to do, because her son, Jesus, has the best intentions for your life in mind. Jesus wants you to spend eternity with him in heaven and happiness. And Mary, who knows about Jesus' mission, who knows about Jesus' power, tells the servants the last thing she ever says is, do what my son wants from you. So here's an image of Mary whispering to Jesus, Jesus, they're out of wine. And here's the rest of the party. And actually, this image is cut off, but if you can see out of the corner here, the bride and groom are wearing crowns because it was thought that when you got married, you are king and queen of your household. So here is Mary whispering to Jesus, hey, Jesus, please do something about this. This couple has run out of wine. And so the last thing Mary ever says is, do whatever my son, Jesus, tells you. And so that's good advice for all of us, to do whatever Jesus tells us to do. So then Jesus ends up doing it. Jesus says, okay, servants, draw some water, draw some out, fill the water pots with water, draw some out, and take it to the head waiter. So Jesus actually begins his public ministry because of his mother. And I think that says a lot about the power of intervention, of praying for one another, especially when you ask Mary to pray for you. Because look how influential her advice, her wish was with her son Jesus. That Jesus wasn't going to perform this miracle, but because she asked him to, he did it. And so it says, so they took the water, to him. When the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it had come from, but the servants who drew the water knew, the head waiter said to the bridegroom, every man serves the good wine first, and when the people have drunk freely, he then serves an inferior wine, a wine that's not as good. But you have kept the good wine until now. No one knows that this is the wine that Jesus turned into from water. And so Jesus turns the water to wine. Then the head waiter takes the wine to the bridegroom and says, you're serving the best wine at the end. No one ever does that. But what he doesn't know is that Jesus had turned the water into wine. So then there's something significant that happens afterwards. It says, this beginning of his signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Jesus began the first of his signs, which John uses only 7 times in his gospel. Instead of the word miracle, he uses the word signs, and John only has 7 of them, so we need to pay attention to every single one. Why does John only have 7? And why does he only pick these 7 miracles? So the first miracle being the wedding at Cana. So here we go. First sign or miracle is the wedding at Cana. What happens? Jesus turns water into wine. But why? Why is that so important? Is it just because they needed the party to keep continuing? No, that's not the reason. So what are the wine jugs made out of? So let's see. It says, now there were 6 stone water pots set for the Jewish custom of purification. Okay, that's really important. This is our clue as to why this miracle is really important. The water pots are made of stone. So let's make a note of that. There are 6 stone, and that's really important, stone water pots. Why is this important? Because what else was made out of stone? Moses wrote the law, the 10 Commandments, on stone. So the 6 stone water pots are a link. It's a reference to the Old Testament stone commandments. So when Jesus turns the water in the stone to wine, Jesus then turns the water in the stone to wine. What does that mean? So what some people have proposed is that the stone water pots, they are the law that Moses wrote on stone. But those laws only held water. They only held water. It wasn't the fullness of the relationship with God. It was just a way of showing that you have a covenant with God, but it wasn't life in God yet. Jesus comes and turns the stone law into wine. So Jesus is the life of the law. And that's why John, in the first chapter of John, he says he was full of grace and truth. Jesus is the life. He's not the water anymore. He has come to make the law, the water, into, so the law was water. He comes to make it wine. If you want the fullness of your relationship with God, you will follow Jesus, who gives you the best type of relationship. Wine, no longer water. So that's what makes this miracle really important. That's basically why the sign at Cana is in there. Because Jesus has given us something better than what was before. He is the new and everlasting covenant. So, to wrap up, we'll get very briefly into probably your favorite part of this chapter, which is the cleansing of the temple. If anyone ever asks you, WWJD, what would Jesus do? One of the things Jesus does end up doing is he makes a whip and he flips tables over. And so he does that at the second half of John chapter 2. It says, and Jesus wasn't losing his temper. He was cleansing the temple from corrupt business that was happening inside of it, where they were selling all sorts of animals. So Jesus then out of zeal, out of love for the house of prayer for God, it says, zeal of your house will consume me. And it's that consuming zeal he had, that love for God, that made him want to clean the temple out of all the business and just keep it a place of prayer. But actually, this zeal for your house will consume me, that's better translated to zeal for your house will destroy me. So, my question to you is, what are you willing to let be destroyed out of your love for God.